This is Lisa Brown. Thank you so much for joining us for this Wednesday webinar. I am Lisa Brown. I am founder and CEO of CST Group, Inc. We've been in business over 23 years. My team kind of has more than 60 plus years of combined experience. And we work in the compliance-driven industry. And basically what that means is we take care of anybody that has the compliance requirements of state, federal, and insurance, cybersecurity requirements type thing. So we take care of that for you. I don't want to waste a lot of time on introductions, simply because I got a lot to talk about. So I want to make sure that that we have time. So if you want to learn more about CST, please just visit our website. It is listed there. Okay. We only got 30 minutes, so let's get started. All right, so on today's agenda, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about what cybersecurity is and really why we care about it. There are 5 things that I'm going to give you that are going to help you mitigate the risks. And then I'm going to present some 2024 changes that I want you to be aware of, just so that you can plan ahead. We are now in 4th quarter of 2023, which means budgets are happening. So I want to make sure that you keep that in mind as you move forward. And then I'm going to talk to you about some understanding of some risk assessments and some audits, which will be coming down in 2024. Okay. All right. So what is cybersecurity? It's basically defined as the protection of computer systems and networks from attacks by malicious actors that may result in an unauthorized information disclosure, theft of, or damage to hardware, software, or data. Wherever there is technology, there needs to be cybersecurity. Okay. The state and federal government are truly coming down on the requirements of what you have to do to protect your organization from malicious actors. Okay, which is what's going to be on our agenda. So why is it important? First and foremost, it's to protect personal, financial, and sensitive information. That is our primary goal. You need to make sure as CEOs and owners and decision makers of your organization that you are doing everything imaginable to protect your information. Okay, for both government and private entities, developing and implementing tailored cybersecurity plans and processes is key to protecting and maintaining business operations. Okay. Once again, if you are in a compliance-driven industry, and by that I mean government, if you are in insurance, legal, accounting, now automotive, anything medical, dental, those are all kind of driven by some entities that are higher than us, right, with state and federal government. So we want to make sure that we're meeting those guidelines. All right, guys, so here are 5 things you can do now to mitigate the risk, right? All right, number 1 is educate with security awareness training. Your employees are your number 1 risk. You must educate them to the dangers of surfing the web, clicking on links in an email, allowing access to their computer systems, and even how they manage phone calls requesting information. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in the next few slides. Number 2 is enforcing strong passwords and administrative controls with some type of password manager. Okay. Right now, if I were to do a survey of how many of you have a password on a Post-it, I dare say I would get all of your hand raises. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We need to turn on multi-factor authentication. Okay. We're going to talk about what that is, why you need it, and a few concerns we have as an IT management firm that's going to help guide you with regards to how you're going to implement that. Okay. Number 4 is perform regular, secure, off-site backups. Okay. Now that ultimately is the easy part for some of you. What is not necessarily happening for you is the testing of those backups. Okay, so we want to make sure that those backups are tested. Once again, we'll talk about it a little bit more in the next few slides. All right, number 5 is update patch, and scan your systems and your software. And I will discuss in length with regards to what that should look like for you. I feel like there are some misconceptions about what that is. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Okay. All right, so let's talk about number one, which is the education of your staff. So you can't have technology without training. Okay. Now, how often are you training your staff currently? Okay. You can spend millions of dollars a year on security software, but your employees are the ones who implement that software. So you really need to educate them. Software, firewalls, backups are all necessary, but it's your employees that are responsible for upholding those security protocols. And what we're learning is that they don't even know what those are. So we have an idea of, I think every organization has an idea of what the security protocols are. I think for some of us, it's common sense, right? You don't click on links in an email. You don't communicate with someone via an email or even a website that you are not familiar with or you're not aware of. You don't act on urgent stuff, right? You get an email. For us, it's kind of common sense, but for your staff, it may not be. So we want to make sure that you are educating your staff. That is why it's number one on our list. Okay. All right. So are your employees prepared? With proper training, they can be the strongest line of defense. So here's three kind of things that we've pointed out. Make your expectations known. I think we, once again, all have an idea of what it should look like, and common sense plays a role here. But oftentimes, that's not what's happening. Okay. Employees are human. They are bound to make mistakes. Security training can help them avoid things like weak passwords and improper data storages and sharing devices and falling to phishing emails, and connecting to unsecured networks, downloading malicious attachments. So it needs to be part of the discussion. Okay. All right. Number two is document with policies and procedures. Now that is becoming part of the compliance guidelines. So if you're ever audited, they will want to see the paper. They're going to want to see where those policies and procedures are. So please make sure that you have the policies and procedures written. Okay. Try to make it part of the hiring process and try to make it part of a regular, I say daily conversation. Obviously, we talk about it here every day, but you need to at least get it part of a routine of how you're communicating those policies and procedures. Okay. And then we like to implement with some security awareness training. That is kind of an automation system that allows us to determine who within your organization would put you at risk. And right, so we want to be able to determine who needs additional education, and we do that with security awareness training. And ultimately, it's just they're phishing simulations that we deploy that basically will test you and your staff with regards to how likely are they to click something. And if they do, it gets reported back. And then we can implement some training to that individual person. And it is incredible. We do it on a quarterly basis, and that quarter is an ongoing thing. And then we provide the auditing for that. So we know exactly who deployed it. We know exactly when they deployed it. We know exactly when a person read the email, clicked on the email, or even submitted data to that fake website. So it's important that we have some type of auditing systems in place. Okay. So 3, make your expectations known, get that documented with policies and procedures, and implement some security awareness training. Okay. So I get it. Everyone hates having to manage passwords. We all manage them differently. I know from our experience of 23 years in business, it is not unusual for us to go into a client's location and see passwords on Post-its, and that just cannot happen anymore. Okay, so we want to make sure that you have a plan in place to kind of manage how you're doing it. All right, so here's some of the requirements. They are password length. So we want them to be at least 16 characters long. We want them to be unique. So the uniqueness of your password is important. We never want you reusing a password. And I know that you guys are probably using the same one over and over again with a variation, right, of a special character. So we want every password to be unique. And we want there to be some complexity to the password. So it has to have upper and lowercase letters. We want it to have numbers, special characters, and even spaces. Okay. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate with regards to how you can approach that with staff, because we're used to using passwords, right? One word. And what we're trying to educate is, let's get it to where it's no longer a word, make it more of a phrase. Make it more of a phrase. Like you can see that sample on your slide basically is, I love purple skies, right? And that is something unique to me. I'm not going to forget that, because I do love purple skies. And then I've just made some variations with special characters, numbers. And actually, there's no special characters in that, so I could probably have kicked a special character. But just use phrases instead of words. It makes it a little bit easier to reach all of those length requirements and the uniqueness of it. Okay, so that is a handy tip. We encourage you also to kind of use a password manager. Now, a password manager is a piece of software that ultimately will allow you to securely remember all of your passwords without really having to know what they are. So with a password manager, you have to remember one password. And it's the password to your password manager. And then it will generate unique passwords for you based on a set of criteria you set. It will alert you if there's duplicates. It'll generate strong ones automatically. And most software password managers will automatically fill in those credentials on websites you visit. Okay. Now, encryption ensures that even the password manager never knows what exactly your passwords are, keeping them safe from cyber attacks. So there is some encryption on the back end. Okay. Now, here's what I want to make sure you think about and consider. If you had a key employee leave, okay, if an employee that you have left, whether they retired, whether they chose another job, or whether it was medical, they were out for medical reasons, what content, what passwords would they take with them that you would need? And it's happened. It's happened dozens of times with clients where an employee left unexpectedly and they walked out the door with all of their credentials. And that is devastating to some of you, where if you could not log in to the portals that you have to log into, or the software that you have to log into, even your accounting systems, we want to make sure that those are documented. So we like to have a password manager with some administrative controls on the back end so that you really can access that information if needed. So please keep in mind that password managers, although they are sometimes complicated to get running and started, they are well worth every penny, because it does give you some administrative access and controls. Okay. Now I'm going to give you, I did not put this in a slide, so if you want the information, write it down. There's a couple of password manager options, like Bitwarden is an option. Bitwarden, NordPass is an option. 1Password, the number 1Password, are all password managers. Okay. Now we provide a proprietary password manager that links to our documentation software. So we offer something a little different to our clients, because we track your documentation, right? So we provide you with a detailed technology manual. If you're a client, that's basically one location. It's a book. Literally, it's a book, but it's a book of all of your tech related stuff, right? So we work on your behalf and we create accounts for you. We make sure that you have secure passwords. We do it all for you. And our password manager links to that. So it's all part of your DTM. So that's the uniqueness about our password manager is it kind of links to your account and therefore that documentation. Okay. All right. So please make sure that you have a handle on your passwords and how you're going to move forward in 2024 on managing those passwords. Please don't use Post-its. Okay. Please don't use Post-its. And even a book. We had some clients that, had a book in the safe. Okay. The problem with that is they're not updated regularly. And if you have to change the passwords, then you're micromanaging every employee's passwords and it's exhausting. So please make sure that you've got something in place. Okay. All right. So MFA is multi-factor authentication. So ultimately, what is it? And it's ultimately a second identifier to make sure you are who you are. That's what it is. It's a code. It could be a code that's sent to your phone or your email. You could have to access that code via an authenticator app. It could be a security key. It could be a biometric fingerprint or facial recognition, like your cell phones. They have MFA because if you've turned on your face recognition, it'll open your phone with your face, right? So ultimately, that's what MFA is. All right, now here's our concern. You don't and will not get a choice in the future. Software companies are going to force you to activate MFA for security reasons. And we are running into some issues with how are you going to address that? How? Are you okay with sending the code to personal cell phones? Is that going to be allowed? What happens if that employee doesn't have a cell phone? What happens if they don't want that code coming to their phone? What about the authenticator apps? Microsoft Office is no longer in the future going to allow a code sent to a cell phone. They're going to want you to have an authenticator app. And that's an app that you download on your phone. And what if you've got an employee that doesn't want that app on their phone? So you've got to start thinking about how MFA is going to affect your daily process. Okay. It's going to be required. We encourage it. I need you to activate MFA. Okay. MFA just allows us to verify you are who you are so that a malicious actor can't access your accounts. So it's important. Okay. It's important for you to access it. All right. So where should you use MFA? All right. Now, my opinion on this is everywhere, right? Everywhere, but that's not a realistic answer. So let's talk about your email. So please make sure that your email has some type of two-factor on it. Hackers are after your email. They want to intercept it. They want to act as you. So they are after your email. Please make sure that you have a complex password and MFA is activated. And if you're using a Microsoft Office suite, that stuff for us is already implemented for you. We control that for you. So if you're a client already, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're not, then please make sure that it's activated. All right. All right. So any online account, I want to make sure that you've got MFA two-factor authentication on any financial information, whether that be a store you're shopping at, whether that be your bank accounts, whether that be your accounting software. Please make sure that MFA is activated. It just verifies that nobody can log in unless they get the code from you. Okay. All right. And then any accounts with personal information. So anytime you're dropping in your date of birth or your social security number or how many, what your family life is like or anything personal needs to be protected. So please make sure that you've got MFA on any social media accounts or any place you're documenting personal information. All right. So that's some suggestion. It's important. MFA is important as just an added security measure. Okay. All right. So we are going to talk a little bit about your data. All right. Now, I am wondering if some of you even know where your data is, to be honest. When we talk to prospects that we're giving some advice to, I'll say, where's your data? Right? Where is it? And for the most part, they really have no idea. So it's not unusual. Matter of fact, most companies we work with really don't know where it is. So backups are no longer optional. You've got to have them. It is a matter of protecting your data if something were to happen. All right. Now, first step is figuring out where your data is. Now, for most of our clients, it's not on a server, right? We have some that have a server and all the data is there, we hope, but it's part of your training, right? And where is your staff putting their data? So when they do that Word document or Excel spreadsheet or, working it within your software integrations, where are they putting that data? Okay. So just try to figure out where it is. That's step number one. All right. And we need you to be backing up to an offsite secure location, and we would like it to happen daily. Now, we understand that if you're doing this independently, that can be a lot to manage. But once again, you can implement it into your processes and procedures. So you can say, hey, I want it backed up once a week, or I want it backed up every night before you leave. So there's ways that you can kind of implement some processes and procedures that will make it a little easy for you. Okay. So please make sure that you have a backup in place. Backup. Okay. If you are ever attacked, and I dare say if, but I think when, because I think it's all going to come down to us at some point. We're going to be affected by it. But we want to make sure that your backup is not in your building or accessible via your network. So even if you have, many of you do have a backup process where it's going to an external hard drive, we want to make sure that it's not connected to the network all the time, because that can also get infected if you were to get attacked, right? So they say, yeah, I got a backup. It's on an external hard drive sitting in my server room or sitting at my computer. Okay, that does us no good. All right. So please make sure it's offsite at a secure location. All right. All right. So when was the last time you verified your backups? All right. So we appreciate the fact that you guys are trying to implement backups. That's great. But when was the last time you actually verified it worked? So it's super frustrating for us as an IT firm to be approached by a company that has been attacked. And when we ask them where their backup is, it's in the same building connected to the network, which means it truly is also infected. So it's a very hard to work with someone who, although they were due diligent, right? They were diligent about making sure the backup was in place. They really never verified that it was actually happening. So we did work with someone recently who truly had said, no, I got a backup. Can you get access to it? And we're like, absolutely. Right. We love that. Yes, we can get access to it. And then when we got access to it, it was 2.5 years old. So we really want to make sure that you're verifying it. Somebody needs to verify that, hey, backup is there. It's yesterday's backup, and I can retrieve from it. So that all leads me into what's in red on your slide, which is your disaster recovery plan. Now, if you are in that compliance-driven industry, you need to have a DRP, okay? A disaster recovery plan is part of your auditing process. It's part of the paperwork you have to have on file, right? And what that disaster recovery plan is going to do for you is it's going to force you, ultimately it forces you to create a recovery time objective and a recovery point objective. And that all drives your backup process. So it determines how often, it determines what gets backed up. It determines if something were to happen, how quickly can I get that backup back, right? And that is up to you, right? That's your decision. Are you okay if something were to happen? Are you okay with being down for a week? Maybe you would be okay with being down for a couple of weeks. Like maybe that would be acceptable. We have an accounting firm that does not want to be down for more than 2 hours. So that is in direct relation affecting how we back up. So we want to make sure that you have thought about that stuff, guys. You need to start thinking about, okay, yeah, I'm backing up, crossing that off my list. But what's not happening is there's no verification of data that it's actually happening. So if I do need it, I know it's good. And there's really no plan in place on how long it would take for me to get everybody back up and running if I don't have a disaster recovery plan in place. Okay. So all of those things are super important to you. So please make sure we're adding that to the list. Okay. Add that to your checklist of what you want to make sure you take care of. All right. All right, guys, next on list is updating your systems and software. All right, so there's a misguided direction with regards to when I say make sure your systems are updated, patched, and scanned. Okay, I say that a lot. And what I'm realizing is I'm not sure y'all understand what that means. So let me try to clarify. So I need to make sure that it's not just about your Windows operating system, right? We want that, right? If your operating systems need to be updated, patched, and scanned. And Microsoft will release patches and updates regularly, at least once a week. At least once a week, they'll release some patch. And here's the reason why. Microsoft in particular has admittedly said, we have issues with our software. We have issues with our operating system. And we've identified it. Somebody got through it. The hole is there. Somebody got through it. We've patched it. We've fixed the gap. And in order for you to get that fix, you've got to do the updates. Okay. So when we ask our clients to leave their systems on, it's because we do all of that after hours, right? We have automation happening. So all of those things are happening after hours. So those updates are important. You're opening up the door to gaps without nobody ever doing anything, because they can get through the back end. All right. Now, it's not just your operating system. It's any software that you use has to be updated and patched regularly. So when is that happening for you? When is it? Is it happening? So we want to make sure that you're taking a look at that stuff, right? You got to pay attention to it. All right. Now, it's not just about software. It's also about the hardware aspect. So if you have a firewall appliance, that's got firmware updates. So once again, the appliance it has got software on the back end that controls it, and that requires firmware. So, and if you're not updating that, once again, it leaves gaps for hackers to get through. So printers are incredibly overlooked because they also need firmware updates. So please make sure that you're considering everything kind of you do on the operational side, and make sure that those updates and patches are coming through to you. All right. All right. So please don't click the remind me later. I know some of you may pop up at you, and you're in the middle of something and you do remind me later, and then right then it never happens. Automatic updates are the easiest way to stay secure, but once again, they're not always automatic. Sometimes they need your attention. Sometimes you got to click it. Sometimes updates come down where they need to come down one at a time. So it needs your assistance to make that happen. So please make sure that you're kind of randomly checking your updates. And once again, don't forget about updating network equipment and printers. All right. All right, so here's some changes for 2024. Once again, compliance is at all-time high. You can expect that everything I've talked about so far is going to need to happen in 2024. But cyber liability insurance requirements are at an all-time high. Your insurance provider is going to dictate what you have to have in place in order for you to get insurance. Okay. And if you don't do that stuff, they won't even insure you with cyber liability insurance. They won't give you a policy. Now, if you have certain pieces of it, they may consider it, but guess what? Your rates are going to be considerably higher. Right, it's a catch-22. All right. There's also going to be in 2024 kind of some risk assessments that will need to happen. And I do want to mention really quickly about some risk assessments. So what is it? It's basically a simulation, a risk assessment. When we offer a risk assessment, first of all, we charge there a lot of money to run those risk assessments. Sometimes I'll throw out some free ones so be watching for those offers. But it's basically a simulation. That's what it is. We ask you to run an executable on 2 or 3 computers, and it simulates. There's nothing installed. We don't access anything. So it's all very safe on your part when you have somebody like us doing it for you. But it simulates what would happen if a hacker were to get through. And it allows us to identify gaps. It allows us to figure out where are your gaps. If you have an IT firm that is not us, it will truly identify whether or not they are producing gaps. And you want to know what those are so that you can figure out how you're going to patch them. Okay. And so why get the assessment? And ultimately, it's specifically for that reason. We want to make sure that we can identify any cybersecurity protocols that are not secure and get them fixed. Okay. And what's great about the risk assessments is it's part of the auditing process, right? So FTC requirements, if you're in the auto industry, FTC is coming down on you and they want quarterly. But they want it audited. They want to be able to prove it. They want the report, right? It generates a report and then it generates action. Like, how did you fix it? So risk assessments in 2024 are going to be important. We offer them on the quarterly. So just be watching for that type of requirement. Okay. All right, so here's some additional resources. You guys will get a copy of the slide deck. So these are clickable links when you get them. Obviously, CISA is there, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. NCA is there. DFS, if you're in government at all, municipalities, DFS provides you with all sorts of guidance on what you have to do. And then, of course, there's some webinar archives that I think would be helpful for some of you. If you have not seen some of our previous webinars, we love doing them and we post them, okay? And here's the summary. So make security awareness training a daily activity. So please educate your staff, whatever your expectations are, talk to them about it. Enforce complex password management, activate two-factor on all your accounts. All of them should have some type of two-factor, and figure out how you're going to manage that with your staff. All right. Perform daily checks on computer software updates, patches, and scans. So ultimately, that's kind of a summary of what we've talked about in the 30 minutes, and we are at time. Here is the upcoming webinars. We only have 2 left for the year. My team and I are projecting out 2024's webinars. We'll try to get that schedule posted on our website so that you all can see it. But surfing restrictions are going to be important in November. We are coming into holiday season, so please make sure we've got some idea of how you're managing staff doing stuff on the internet during shopping season. And then I will do a technology review in December. All right, so I do have that network assessment. Now, this network assessment is not a risk assessment. Risk assessments are something completely different, but I do want to, if you want more information, this webinar is only 30 minutes. So it's a lot for me to discuss in 30 minutes. So I offer these free network assessments so that we can have a one-on-one conversation that is very specific and unique to you. If you would like to schedule one of those, it's free. It's 15 minutes normally of your time, just to kind of discuss what your specific needs are, if you have any pain points, and I can guide you, right? It's about providing you with information. So please schedule that network assessment. There's our phone numbers. We do have an office here in New York and in Florida. Both of those numbers are there. And Sarah is my point of contact. Okay. So Sarah's on the call. I think she's been managing the Q&A. Is there any questions, Sarah?
We have one question. Is it possible for an organization to do this without the help of an outside company like yours?
Okay, interesting. Yes, of course it's possible, as long as you're willing to put in the work. Cybersecurity is not a one and done or leave it and forget it. It's just not. It requires constant attention to ensure it's all happening as it should be. If you neglect one thing, then it opens the door to other things happening. So you got to make sure it's a daily activity for you. So for example, if you don't check the patches and the updates and the scans on all of your assets, all of the computers, and you leave one out that doesn't get a critical update, you then open the door for hackers to get in through that system. So it kind of fundamentally has to happen across everything. Honestly, securing technology and ensuring your team's educated is a lot of work. If you're willing to put in the work, then absolutely, you are capable of doing it yourself. Most of the people we work with really don't. They don't want to do it. Or they don't maybe feel like they have the knowledge to do it and make sure they're meeting all of those compliance requirements. So my initial answer is yes, of course you can, but it does require a little bit of work. Okay. All right, guys. Is there anything else, Sarah?
No, there's no more questions.
Okay, beautiful, guys. Thank you so much for attending. If you have any additional questions, or if you just want to chat with me, get on my calendar so we can take care of you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.